West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Good evening, everyone. We are following a number of important stories tonight, including President Biden's emotional visit to Buffalo today, where he met with the families of the victims killed in Saturday's racist mass shooting. A little later, I'll speak with the son of one of those victims. Plus, polls close later this hour in North Carolina and at the top of the hour in Pennsylvania. We'll have updates on some of the major races. We'll begin the readout tonight with breaking news on the investigations into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The New York Times is reporting tonight that the Justice Department has asked the January 6th committee for transcripts of the interviews it has conducted in its investigation. The request came on April 20th, with the DOJ indicating that some committee interviews may contain information relative to a criminal investigation we are conducting. NBC News has now confirmed that reporting. The DOJ did not indicate the number of transcripts they wanted or if there were any specific interviews they were interested in. So far, the committee has interviewed more than 1,000 people, including many close to the twice impeached former president. While Attorney General Merrick Garland has received criticism about the Justice Department's response to the insurrection, this is the latest sign of the department appearing to escalate the scope of its inquiry. And as the New York Times also points out, several months ago, the department quietly detailed a veteran federal prosecutor from Maryland, Thomas Wyndham, to the department's headquarters. He's overseeing the politically fraught question of whether a case can be made related to other efforts to overturn the election, aside from the storming of the Capitol. That task could move the investigation closer to Donald Trump and his inner circle. And January 6th committee chairman Benny Thompson told reporters tonight that his committee is willing to work with the Department of Justice, but no agreement has been made yet on what will be provided. Joining me now, former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner and Barbara McQuaid, professor at the University of Michigan Law School and a former U.S. attorney. I'll just ask each of you, ladies first, Barbara, what do you think it indicates? Because we know that there has been, this is the largest investigation in DOJ history. So we know that they're investigating the January 6th insurrection. What does it mean that they want transcripts of interviews that the January 6th committee has conducted?
Joy, I think this signals that the investigation is not solely related to the physical attack on the Capitol on January 6th. That we've known for a long time. But is that much more expansive investigation into all of the things that the committee has been looking at? It seems to me that it's likely that the Justice Department has been building to this stage all along. You know, they've got that seditious conspiracy case against the Oath Keepers. 3 of them have now pled guilty and are cooperating. And so they've been building up to this point, and they're now ready to go overt and sort of admit to the world that, yes, we are looking at all of this, at everybody, including Trump in his inner circle. So to me, that's what this signals.
You know, Glenn, yeah, this feels very significant to me because, you know, we know that the physical attack on the Capitol, that's been the prosecutions we've seen so far, the low-level guys, the people dressed up in, you know, crazy costumes, the people who were committing violence against police officers and inside the Capitol. That is one chunk of this. But the committee, you know, and we now know, thanks to a lot of good reporting, driven in a lot of ways by Liz Cheney, has been zeroing in on Trump, his inner circle, his family, members of Congress, people who were involved in the overall strategy behind the physical attack. So when you see the Justice Department asking for these transcripts, what does that say to you?
You know, it's interesting because I think we've all experienced some frustration because it doesn't look like the Department of Justice has been investigating this the way it would ordinarily investigate, you know, even large-scale conspiracy cases because they don't appear to have been sort of carpet bombing folks with grand jury subpoenas the way we ordinarily would. But I think if we saw the wood in front of us and we try to discuss where we are now, think about this. If the Department of Justice had gone after everybody with grand jury subpoenas, they probably would have been battling witness after witness after witness, these 1,000+ witnesses. They would have been battling with Congress. Who gets which witness first? Who has the greater priority? Now what the Department of Justice can do is they can take 1,000+ transcripts and they can use that to build their criminal investigation. So I actually think whether this was by design, by happenstance, or some combination thereof, this might turn out to be a pretty savvy way to go about investigating the case. And let's not forget that the chief investigative counsel for the January 6th committee, Tim Heaphy, is frankly a very accomplished RICO prosecutor in his own right when he served at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. So I suspect it has been a really savvy investigation that has been put together by the January 6th committee.
Let me ask both of you this, and I'll start with you, Barbara, first. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so but my sort of logic sense tells me that if the DOJ is looking at something like a larger conspiracy investigation, not just the physical attack, but a conspiracy to either obstruct Congress, which I know that's one crime it could be, or a larger, as Glenn is indicating, sort of a big RICO case saying that there was a conspiracy to, you know, steal the election, conspiracy to, you know, attack the government, whatever that conspiracy might be. Does the fact that they want transcripts indicate to you that someone that they've prosecuted and who's now cooperating, and we know there have been a lot of sort of high-level cooperators among, you know, organizations like not the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, these other sort of big organizations, could some of them have maybe indicated that they did have connections and contact with some of the same people that the January 6th committee is interviewing?
Yes, I think that's quite possible. I think that's quite possible, Joy. 3 of those Oath Keepers have entered guilty pleas and have agreed to cooperate. So we won't know for a while what it is they have said, but we know that one of them, Joshua James, was seen with Roger Stone on January 6th at the Willard Hotel. And so it is quite possible that those defendants have provided links to others. I also think that there have been some really tremendous testimony that has already been given that has been publicly reported. We know that 2 aides to Mike Pence, Mark Short and Greg Jacob, have revealed some really astonishing testimony about Donald Trump's efforts to push Mike Pence to throw the election to him. We know about the testimony of those who are still at the high levels of the Justice Department after William Barr left, like Jeffrey Rosen and Richard Donahue, who talked about how Jeffrey Clark had a plan to throw the election into the states. And so getting their hands on those transcripts can be very valuable in trying to put this all together. And then, as you say, if they've got additional testimony not known to the committee, like the testimony of these Oath Keepers, they may be in a position to put together some very strong charges in short order.
Right, and Glenn, you know, they're asking for, you know, transcripts of interviews conducted and that will be conducted. So it's intriguing in that they obviously have eyes on the investigation. One transcript they'll never get is Donald Trump, because it's pretty, the January 6th committee has indicated they're not going to even try to call Donald Trump. But it seems to me very hard to believe that someone like Donald Trump, who, if you talk to people like Tim O'Brien and other people who've been biographers of him, when it comes to anything that's about himself, he doesn't care about anyone else, but he definitely cares about himself. And if the idea was that he wanted to remain in power by any means necessary, it's hard for me to believe that he wouldn't have known what was going on. I can believe Pence didn't know, because poor Pence was meant to be a victim in this whole thing if he didn't comply. But it's hard for me to believe that Trump didn't know. So in your mind, is it possible for the DOJ to conduct an investigation and isolate the former president out of it?
Oh, absolutely. There's so much evidence that's been reported that Donald Trump did know and that he had corrupt intent. As but one example, when he was talking to some of his DOJ officials and he was told there was no election fraud, he said something along the lines of, it doesn't matter, just say there was and leave the rest to me and my allies in Congress. That screams corrupt intent. That's important information. Let me build on one thing Barb said. She said there's been a lot of really important testimony that we have learned about, developed by the January 6th committee. Well, guess what? If the Department of Justice had gone first and had presented these 1,000 witnesses to the grand jury, we would get to know about none of that information because of grand jury secrecy rules. Now, we're going to get on June 9th, we're going to get a really compelling view of what these 1,000 witnesses said in their sworn testimony, what they brought to the table. And it's kind of a win-win because the American people are going to get to see that evidence and the grand jury is ultimately going to benefit from that evidence. So this is not the worst way DOJ could have gone about investigating this.
It is Wednesday, the 18th of May of 2022. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Yes, this is the day. This is the day that we make the plaintive plea, will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests. And I don't know, all the Nazis, too. They're so meddlesome. This guy Mastriani in Pennsylvania, I like to call him dome-headed, goose-stepping maggot Nazi. A Christo-fascist, too. But that's because I'm a romantic. But anyway, that's what he is. He's also a retired colonel in the military. What the hell is happening? Oh my God, it's even worse. I think he's a lieutenant colonel. Regardless, it just proves something that's been bandied about for a bit. And that is, wow, there sure are a lot of insurgent Nazis in the military. Can't we do something about that? And why is this guy getting a pension? Why is Flynn getting a pension? Why is Flynn's brother still in command? You know, he was the one that denied, made the order. He kind of borked it. Gave the order to, pretty much keep the National Guard from being mobilized because that was, the President of the United States did that. So he was following orders, okay? And he was rewarded. And somehow he's still in command. And yet the Vindmans... Now, I got to tell you, there was only one Vindman who made any proclamation about the crimes of Donald Trump. But they were twins, and they were both in the military, and Colonel Vindman's brother got drummed out of the military, too. He didn't do anything. He was just doing his job. Well, you could say both of them were doing his job, but guilt by association. And yet, a traitor like Flynn, his brother, who then helped the insurgency continue that day on January 6th, was rewarded with a command. And he's still there. I know it's hard and it takes a long time to, complete the rat hunt. But there's a rat hunt, and they should step it up. A rat hunt for Nazis. Because that is exactly what they are. Let's not beat around the bush anymore. There's nothing wrong with being Antifa. They made Antifa a pejorative. Can you believe that? Of course, because they're Nazis. It's about time that we, fight fire with fire. At least rhetorically. If we are grifting pedophiles, they are Nazis. It's as simple as that. And we get to use less syllables so that it pretty much gets embedded in their reptilian brain. Do reptiles even have a brain that we know of? That we can call a brain? Yeah, we do. They do. but it's pretty much reactive to stimuli around them. React and then think later, hopefully. Okay. So we had a primary election, and things are shaken out. And I will take the observant conservative Jew over that dome-headed, maggot, goose-stepping, Christo-fascist Nazi. You mean there's a choice there? I don't know. And Pennsylvania is supposed to be the place where we ratified the Constitution of the United States of America. There sure are a lot of Nazis in Pennsylvania. I saw that crowd at Mastriani's victory, whatever it was. First day. Everybody gets their rights taken away. Yay! Sure looked like a lot of those Amish types and Mennonite types. And they were under electric lights, too, after dark. What the hell? I guess they can do that. I don't know. Now, I might be conflating and being a little bigoted, but I just got to say, you know, they looked like a certain type. I could say everything I know about the Amish and the Mennonites I learned from Witness with, the Peter Weir movie back in the day with Harrison Ford. Yeah. But I know a little bit more than that. Anyway, they had a particular kind of religious, orthodoxy look. Very similar to the Taliban when you think about it. It's weird. Is it? There's a reason why I remain clean-shaven among an age of, bearded old guys. I can't stand it. I used to have various kinds of beards, and even, like when I was like the hippie back in the day, when I couldn't really even grow a beard. Had to have a beard. Now I can't keep it back. Used to be I had to shave twice a day. Now I still have to shave twice a day, but only do it once. I'm getting lazy. Okay, sometimes I give my face a rest for a day. A whole day. Well, enough of this. Now, enough of the revealing the secrets of my personal grooming. How was your day going? Oh, back to the election. It looks like here in Oregon, we have the possibility of remaining. I hope, Democratic. I really hope. And we'll see if this, we have a independent candidate, who says she's going to force both the Democrats and the Republicans to sit together and, work together. Totally ignoring the fact that it's been the Republicans who have been pretty much on a seditious insurgency for quite a while. In fact, we were one of the states that they had their stage rehearsals for the January 6th insurrection right down to the storming of our own state house. And with the inside help of who? Republicans. Okay. There's been some Republicans who have been drummed out of office and actually convicted of a crime, aiding and abetting a riot. So, talk about a test case. So she wants to force the Democrats and the Republicans to get together. The only people who get forced are us. Okay, you don't force them. There's no forcing them. They'll just hightail it out of the state. They'll go to Idaho. Wow, talk about Idaho. Brad Little, the least of the crazies, because he ain't no sane actual person in his own right. I mean, you got to remember, this is Idaho after all. The state of extremists that has run a family of 4 generations off the family farm and moved them all the way over here to Oregon. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seceding our state and becoming Greater Idaho, please. People are escaping that. I think what we need to do is probably work really damn hard to stamp out the extremist element here in southern and southeastern Oregon. And one way to do that, Democratic people out there is to run in every race. How is it that out here in this part of the state, they don't put up a Democratic candidate against these, I gotta say, Nazi adjacent at least? Every race. I fill out my ballot and there's like, oh, well, there's no Democratic candidate in this primary. Why? We just see this part? No. I know the idea is that, we'll pack them all down in this part of the state and we'll keep them quiet. No, that's how it becomes fetid. That's how the caustic agents become more potent. You concentrate them, and it's not going to work out very well if you're trying to keep them in the tank. The tank will corrode and they'll spill out and, damage the surrounding area. And you know what I mean with this metaphor. I think we need to throw some base in the acid and neutralize it. And by base, I mean rational thinking Democratic voters. And part of that is like, look, we can be a little free with our rhetoric, right? Call a Nazi a Nazi. A Nazi by any other name would smell just as Nazi. All right, my ass. They're Nazis. See, 2 syllables. That's how it works in rhetoric. At least from what I've read. And a few classes, too. All right. What's on the menu here on Smothered Benedict Wednesdays? And I should remind folks, I know. It's a reference to Beckett and the meddlesome priests and all that. But here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, it also means this lovely egg dish with a velvety hollandaise sauce. So don't think so many extreme untoward things, please. We temper it here. Yeah, just like sugar. Well, on the rest of the menu, starting off in the Bistro Cafe, the Justice Department requesting transcripts from the January 6th Select Committee may be the savvy way to investigate the insurrection. Yeah, they're just going to step around it. Some people are saying this morning that Benny Thompson saying, well, we're not just going to give up these transcripts right away. Well, this is standard operating procedure. Do not worry. You're worrying your head off. All right. This is how it says some negotiations going on here. And actually, the committee and the DOJ have been working pretty well with each other so that they don't step on each other's toes. This is just standing operating procedure. They're going to get the transcripts. So, okay. On the rest of the menu, the Biden administration announced a plan to increase the supply of affordable housing, and Pennsylvania could benefit the most. Yeah, let's see if that dome-headed, goose-stepping, crystal-fascist maggot Nazi running for governor can handle that. You know what he will say. The affordable housing, obviously, is going to those people. 3 Wisconsin Democratic voters filed a first-of-its-kind lawsuit against 10 fake Trump electors and the 2 lawyers who advised them. And the Justice Department sued Republican megadonor Steve Wynn to register as an agent of China, the first affirmative civil lawsuit under the Foreign Agents Registration Act in more than 30 years. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the UN Special Envoy for Iraq warned that the streets are about to boil over. Wow, it's like something spreading, isn't it? Yes, it is. And the Spanish government approved a draft bill that widens abortion rights. Spain. While making Spain the first country in Europe entitling workers to paid menstrual leave. See, they're in the 21st century. We're going back to the 11th. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of the chat room link across the page, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. Do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. It would really help us, and it has. It really has. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, it really does help us pay our bills. So if you could, please do. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and thank you, Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I suggest you do, because that's where I post the show notes and links for the show notes and links diary. And that's where the real reporters can be found. I try to do that actually the show notes and links diary gets posted at 10 minutes before showtime, and then I scramble to get it linked up on Twitter and those other social media platforms. Sometimes it's after showtime during the opening clip. Sorry. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio, if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West, and do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. And of course, now the Deep State Archive, as we like to call it, of the Netroots Radio Library, in which West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be found, and that other incarnation from way back, some after something, yeah. All that can be found at the Netroots Radio Library on the Internet Archive at archive.org. Okay. Of course, those direct links can be found in the show notes and links diary, and where we have the show notes and links. Try it. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, because save room, we still have the chef's table for the amuse-bouche. Oh, okay, go ahead, fill up. An amuse-bouche is tiny. You can have a little bit of room for it. You'll find it. Anyway, this first offering comes from the American Independent by the great Oliver Willis. Pennsylvania, which is already using funds made available under the American Rescue Plan to expand its stock of affordable housing, is set to benefit from the Biden administration's newly released Housing Supply Action Plan designed to address ongoing nationwide housing supply shortages. While Pennsylvania Democratic Governor Tom Wolf has previously announced the allocation of millions of dollars in federal funding for housing assistance in his state, surveys show that the residents of the state are still struggling with the housing issues exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. The White House said that Biden's plan includes legislative and administrative actions that will help close America's housing supply shortfall in 5 years, starting with the creation and preservation of hundreds of thousands of affordable housing units in the next 3 years. This is the most comprehensive all-of-government effort to close the housing supply shortfall in history. It's supposed to be hyphenated, but they didn't do that. Under the plan, the federal government will work to help shape local policies on land use and zoning, and will direct funds to assist low-income Americans faced with high rents, with a particular focus on building and preserving rental housing for low and moderate income families. The plan's policies to boost supply are an important element of bringing home ownership within reach for Americans, the White House said. Okay. Now, the administration said that the funding allocated under the $1.9 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to jurisdictions, including funding dispersed through grants from the Department of Transportation, will reward jurisdictions that have put in place land use policies to promote density and rural Main Street revitalization. Department of Transportation will continue to include language encouraging locally driven land use reform, density, rural Main Street revitalization, and transit-oriented development in bipartisan infrastructure law and other transportation discretionary grant programs. Wow, that's government speak. A report released in April by the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center notes that since the onset of COVID-19, there is even less affordable rental housing available in the state than previously. The website Pennsylvania Business Report noted that the author of the report, Kalinde Akande, said, the two main takeaways are that eviction mitigation is working to keep people in their homes, and it should be expanded, and a permanent rental assistance fund is needed in the state for the large numbers of cost-burdened families in Pennsylvania. And a survey released in March by the Bucks County Opportunity Council, which works on anti-poverty measures, found that affordable housing was the greatest need in the area. In addition to the 74% of respondents who identified difficulty affording rent, 71% of respondents identified difficulty affording utilities as a housing challenge, the survey noted. Helderman of the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. 3 Democratic voters in Wisconsin, including 2 who served as electors for President Biden in 2020, filed suit against 10 supporters of Trump in the state, arguing the group engaged in a civil conspiracy to violate state and federal law when they declared themselves presidential electors in 2020, even though Biden won the state's popular vote. The group also sued 2 lawyers who worked with Trump's campaign and advised Trump's electors to meet in states Biden had won and declare themselves properly elected. Wisconsin was one of 5 states won by Biden where Republican electors gathered on December 14th of 2020 and declared themselves duly elected and qualified, then sent signed certificates that were forged to Washington, purporting to affirm Trump as the actual victor in their states. Though Biden's win had been formally certified in their states, in some cases confirmed via recounts and upheld by courts, about 60 of them. Trump supporters cited the actions of the electors to argue Biden's win in the states was in doubt. They argued that when Congress met to count the Electoral College votes, Mike Pence could choose to recognize Trump's electors over Biden's. Trump's supporters violently stormed the U.S. Capitol after Pence announced he believed that the Constitution required him to recognize only official electors. The House committee investigating the January 6 attack has been exploring the origin of the plan to appoint rival slates of Trump electors. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco confirmed in January that the Justice Department is also investigating whether what she termed fraudulent elector certifications violated federal law. The lawsuit filed in Wisconsin's Dane County represents a new approach to seeking to hold fake Trump electors accountable. It asks that a judge formally declare that the Trump supporters' actions were unlawful, that they took actions that constituted a public nuisance under Wisconsin law, and engaging in a conspiracy that violated the rights of Biden electors and voters. It also asks that the judge require Trump supporters to take the unusual step of correcting the historical record by sending a judicial order declaring their actions unlawful to the same government entities to which they sent certificates in 2020, including the President of the U.S. Senate and the National Archives. It also asks a judge to prohibit the defendants from ever serving as presidential electors again and require that they pay monetary damages. Isaac Stanley Becker and Spencer S. Hugh of the Washington Post bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Justice Department sued Steve Wynn to compel the hotel and casino magnate and Republican megadonor to register as an agent of China. The suit, filed in U.S. District Court in D.C., argues that Wynn, a former chief executive of Wynn Resorts, leveraged his relationship with Trump and members of his administration to advance Beijing's interests in 2017. The government said the complaint is the first affirmative civil lawsuit under the Foreign Agents Registration Act in more than 30 years, a sign of stepped-up enforcement efforts under the 1983 law. Wynn, a former finance chairman of the RNC, is accused of relaying a request from a senior Chinese official asking that the Trump administration remove a Chinese national who had sought asylum in the U.S. His activities, prosecutors assert in the lawsuit, including discussing Beijing's interests directly with Trump during a dinner in June of 2017, and providing the Chinese national's passport photos to the president's secretary. Wynn, the government argues, was acting at the behest of the Chinese official, who was then the vice minister for public security, as well as of the Chinese government itself. In doing so, from at least June of 2017 through at least August of 2017, the defendant acted as an agent for foreign principals and engaged in political activities on their behalf in the United States, the complaint states. The Chinese exile is not named in the complaint, but prosecutors have previously identified him as Guo Wangji, who had left China in 2014 and was later charged with corruption. Information detailing the exile in the lawsuit also aligns with descriptions of Guo. At the time, Wynn had significant business interests involving China, owning and operating casinos in Macau, and acted out of a desire to protect his business interests, the Justice Department alleged. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, so much of so little to say. First thing I want to say about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is I want to see it again. It was such a ride and was so much I don't know that I can say anything interesting after just one viewing. That said, second, although you don't need any of these things to watch Multiverse of Madness, if you've watched the Marvel movies and the TV shows and know the comics, then this Marvel film, more than others, really rewards your knowledge. Third, it's been a while since I've been so pleasantly misdirected by trailers. I thought I knew who the villain was going to be, and it turns out I was wrong. And in a way, it turns out I was right. But speaking of villains, where Marvel movies have really excelled with their villains, this movie is a refreshing change from the mass murderers with sympathetic motives, the villain formula they have worked so well. Fourth is that Sam Raimi has managed to make both a heck of a Marvel film and a Sam Raimi movie. There are just little moments, like when the second monster dies in a particularly gory way, I thought, oh, there you are, Sam Raimi. Also, in a self-referential director cameo via motif kind of way, look for how many standout moments, whether plot points or comic relief, revolve around hands, or specifically touch. Fifth, when Doctor Strange came out, I feared that movie version Doctor Strange wouldn't capture the trippiness of co-creator Steve Ditko's worlds. Turns out, didn't need to fear that. Sixth, love Benedict Wong as Wong, and I love Wong as Sorcerer Supreme. Y Xochitl Gomez como America Chavez? Sí. Seventh, what was up with all the male characters' hair? Eighth, I was pleased to see Multiverse of Madness complete an arc for Doctor Strange's character that started in Doctor Strange and continued through Spider-Man No Way Home. Ninth, on top of all that, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness has something very valuable and very Marvel-like to say, that, in wake of tragedy, if we don't process and move on, but instead wallow in our grief or regret or envy or hubris, we can become not just villains, but monsters. Finally, I still want to see it again. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Heart disease and stroke can be catastrophic. They're leading causes of death, disability, and healthcare spending in the U.S., yet they're largely preventable. Alarmingly, heart disease and stroke are taking a toll on middle-aged adults 35 to 64, with over 800,000 deaths and hospitalizations in 2016. Million Hearts is a national initiative focused on preventing 1 million heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular events by 2022. Coordinated actions by Million Hearts partners in communities, healthcare, and public health will keep people healthy, optimize care, and improve outcomes in populations at risk. Everyone has a part to play. Focus on the ABCs of heart health. A. Aspirin use when appropriate. B. Blood pressure control. C. Cholesterol management. And S. Smoking cessation. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
When Supreme Court member Sam Alito's secret plan for canceling the constitutional right of women to end their pregnancies leaked out to the public, Republican politicos went ballistic. Over the leak, that is. The court's Republican Chief Justice John Roberts called the unauthorized disclosure, quote, an affront to the majesty of the Supremes. Likewise, Republican congressional leaders have furiously demanded to know who done it and why. Way beyond the political screeching and posturing, however, a Pennsylvania woman quietly wrote a letter to the New York Times that calmly posed a couple of honest, more fundamental questions. Why are Supreme Court votes and processes so hidden in the first place? And how did this grip on secrecy become so sacrosanct? After all, as important and enormously powerful as this tiny judicial body is, it's still a governmental agency doing public business that affects every American. So the legal work that the 9 members of this ultimate judicial authority do, including their internal machinations to reach such awesome decisions as nullifying fundamental human rights, ought to be transparent to all who will be affected. The ugly truth is that today's third branch of government has needlessly, dangerously, and rather ludicrously become a black-robed autocracy. Bear in mind that these 9 individuals are enrobed for life, make up their own rules of ethical conduct, operate almost entirely behind closed doors, and the bare majority of only 5 of them can arbitrarily overrule presidents, congresses, states, other courts, voters, and your own personal life decisions. This is Jim Hightower saying, and now comes a GOP majority of Supreme Justices determined to entrench corporate plutocracy, right-wing theocracy, and Republican sovereignty over all of us. That's why we must finally lift the medieval level of secrecy the partisan judges are using to shroud their actions. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
Here's a primer on some of the legal issues raised by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The law of war rests significantly on the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and the Charter of the United Nations, which is essentially a treaty among nations. The first purpose of the law of war is to prevent wars and the horrors of armed conflict. Genocide, crimes against humanity, violation of other laws of war, all are covered, as is the crime of aggression, one country invading another. The law of war validates the use of force for self-defense, which clearly applies to Ukraine. Interestingly, Russia seeks legal validity for its invasion by claiming that it's engaged in self-defense, preemptive self-defense. The second purpose of the law of war is to regulate how wars are fought after the first goal, prevention of war, fails to be realized. The law of war thus imposes obligations and restrictions intended to protect civilians, to differentiate civilians from combatants, to require the humane treatment of wounded soldiers, sailors, and prisoners of war, and to prevent atrocities. The law of war also makes rules for adjudicating these issues, although it's really difficult to hold responsible persons who commit war crimes. What Russia's invasion of Ukraine demonstrates is a failure of law, a failure often repeated, with consequences that are shocking and enraging, horrifying, and heartbreaking. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1979. That was the day an Oklahoma City jury found in favor of the estate of Karen Silkwood. Karen worked as a lab tech at the Cimarron nuclear plant operated by the Kerr-McGee Corporation. Karen joined the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers International Union during a 1972 strike at the plant. She walked the picket line, returning to work once the strike was ended. Karen remained very concerned about safety standards in the plant. So much so that she decided to serve on the union's bargaining team. She also agreed to secretly collect documentation of the plant's negligence. In November, she did a routine self-check and found she had higher than normal levels of plutonium, an incredibly deadly substance in her body. Further investigation found her home was contaminated as well. She became convinced that her employer was attempting to poison her. Kerr McGee accused Karen of poisoning herself to put nuclear companies in a bad light. Despite her fears, Karen pressed on with her investigation. She was on her way to meet with a union representative and a reporter from the New York Times when she died in a mysterious car accident. She was allegedly carrying a manila folder of documents related to her investigation. The documents were never found. Evidence showed that she was likely forced off the road by another vehicle. The jury found the company at fault for the plutonium contamination, awarding more than $10.5 million in damages. The company fought the verdict and eventually settled with the family for $1.38 million. In 1983, Meryl Streep starred in a movie, Silkwood, telling the story of this incredible woman who gave her life fighting for worker safety. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high again in the mid-70s. Mainly cloudy, though, today, with winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy early tonight with increasing clouds overnight. Lows in the mid-40s, and winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sunshine, with highs only in the low 60s. Quite a drop, isn't it? Though, and the reason may be because winds will be out of the north-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus have not been updated by the county here of Jackson in the southern part of Oregon. We expect that to be updated hopefully today, maybe after showtime tomorrow. They've been a bit bereft in getting out those numbers on a timely basis. Woe to us. So we continue to stand at 434,063 confirmed cases, and our deceased remain at 533 as of Friday last. Well, pollen in outside the window here in Rogue River proper is rated as very high, and I can attest to that. The air quality index, though, is good at 24 parts per million, which only means the people around here are going to burn their trash. God, I hate that. And the daytime UV index is high at level 7, so if they don't cover up, either they're going to get burned by the burning trash or they're going to get burned by the cosmic rays of the sun. One can only hope. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.27 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 80%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowdsources from around the world. London is 74 degrees and sunny. Paris, oh my God, is 85 and sunny. It's heating up. Kind of early for that this spring, I must say. Anyway, Rome is 82 and fair. Kyiv is 53 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 70 degrees and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 75 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 63 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 57 and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 and sunny. And New York, New York is 65 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Edith M. Lederer of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The UN Special Envoy for Iraq warned its political leaders that the streets are about to boil over because of their deadlock and failure to address a host of issues, including the suffering of ordinary people and armed groups firing rockets with impunity. Janine Hani-Placher told several reporters after briefing the UN Security Council that Iraq and the region cannot afford to go back to October of 2019. That is when young men and women fed up with the Iraqi political elite they blamed for many grievances launched mass demonstrations that were met with bullets, water cannons, and tear gas that plunged the country into renewed instability just as it was starting to emerge from war against the Islamic State extremist group. In her briefing to the council, she warned that notorious aspects of Iraqi political life are repeating themselves in a seemingly incessant loop of zero-sum politics. More than 7 months after parliamentary elections, she said, multiple deadlines for the formation of a government have been missed. Hani-Placher warned Iraq's political leaders not to hide behind the argument that a government has not been formed, which she said distracts from what is at stake. It not only excuses a political deadlock while armed groups fire rockets with apparent freedom and impunity, and ordinary people suffer, she said, it excuses a political impasse while simmering public anger can boil over at any moment.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The Spanish government approved a draft bill that widens abortion rights for teenagers and may make Spain the first country in Europe entitling workers to paid menstrual leave. The measures are part of a package of proposals that will be sent to the Spanish Parliament for debate. The package includes an extension of abortion rights, scrapping the requirement for 16 and 17-year-olds to obtain parental consent before terminating a pregnancy. The Spanish move comes just as the U.S. Supreme Court appears poised to reverse that country's constitutional right to abortion in place for nearly half a century. The driving force behind the law is the junior member of Spain's left-wing coalition government, the United We Can Party. It was not immediately clear whether the socialist-led coalition has enough support in Parliament to pass the proposed legislation, which could take months. The government, which came to power almost 4 years ago, has made women's rights one of its political banners. The cabinet has 14 women and 8 men in ministerial positions. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.